Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar in celebration of the 10th anniversary of C189. Today, we will celebrate collectively. We will share the stories of victories of domestic workers' resilience around the world. And before we start, we would like to invite our president, Myrtle Whitboy, to share the opening statement for today's session. Myrtle, the floor is yours.
Good day, everybody. How are you today? This is a wonderful day for the IDWF. Today, we are looking back, but we're also celebrating Convention 189. 10 years of Convention 189. We have to look at what have we gained. We also have to look, is it working for us? Is countries probably just signing but not doing anything about Convention 189? Today, when we celebrate Convention 189, our message is clear to all the governments in the world. The governments that did not ratify, our message is, watch out for IDWF. We are women. We are united. We are strong, and we are going to go to all these governments, and we are going to demand our rights. We need to understand Convention 189 belongs to us. It is ours. We must be jealous about it. We must guard it, but we must also ensure that they don't put it under the table, they don't put it in the cupboard, they let it work for us. This morning when I was speaking at the Malaysia conference, I feel so proud when I saw the young domestic workers, but there must be a future for them in the IDWF. We must use those young domestic workers. We must teach them, we must empower them so that they can go out there and talk to other domestic workers. I want to say thank you to all of you, especially looking at our General Secretary Elizabeth. Viva Elizabeth, thank Viva. We are so proud to have you with us. Vicky, our coordinator, Rola, all of our coordinators in the IDWF, our Hong Kong office for the hard work you have done today. Without you, this is not possible. Today, I'm sitting with a room full of such how we are really celebrating because, yes, we've got Convention 189, but we have to ensure, and we have to go tell our minister again, that is our law. We want it to work for us. So as we go into this day, as we celebrate, yes, many tears were shed, we were crying, we were screaming, we were shouting, but we are proud to be domestic workers. And one thing I want to say to you, never stand back as a domestic worker. You are a woman, you are a mother, you are a wife. Speak out for your rights. Sit in front of your employer and say, look at me, I'm a worker, and like I'm always saying, I am the change that I want. And another thing is, our work make all work possible. The economies come from us because if I'm not there in my boss's kitchen, how can he go out and build this company? So today we say to all of you, stay strong. Go on, unite. Never let us be divided. Let us unite. Let us speak in one voice to all of the executive members that are here today. Yes, we're going deeper into our retirement years and things like that, but there's still so much to do. So let us celebrate. Let us say thank you. Let us not forget the above that's giving us all the strength to carry on. I salute you all, and I say forward with the IDWF, forward. Thank you.
Thank you, President Myrtle. There is no retiring from this struggle. Basically, as Myrtle is speaking about a lot of the leadership, future and present and past leadership, these are all the people that we are celebrating today. We will take a few minutes to watch a video that was prepared for this occasion, a video that showcases the 10 years of struggle, what has brought us all together today here to celebrate C189.
Domestic workers provide essential care to the most precious parts of many employers' lives, their children, their elderly parents, and their homes. We have found that the absence of comprehensive labor protections and monitoring mechanisms contributes to domestic workers comprising significant numbers of the victims of forced labor servitude, and human trafficking.
Domestic workers. We ourselves was leading the delegation. We ourselves speak for ourselves.
Our basic rights are not recognized nor respected, and we are often invisible from a social point of view and excluded from the public policies of state.
In today's world, vast numbers of women are migrating. They do it precisely because of their love for their families, so that the money they earn can pay for education, healthcare, and so on.
It's the 16th today of June 2011 that freedom at last came for domestic workers around the world.
Domestic workers, no slavery! Slaves no more, but workers of the world.
June 16, 2011 was a momentous day for domestic workers around the world. Since that day, through agitation and active lobbying, 4 Caribbean islands have ratified, including Jamaica, and our workers are now assured protections. In Jamaica, domestic workers now have the same rights as all other workers. For example, sick leave, public holiday with double time pay, 8 hours work day, and we are also protected under the Termination and Redundancy Payment Act.
Since Convention 189, we never wasted any opportunity in front of us. In fact, we exhausted every chance and little resources in promoting and pressuring stakeholders to adopt law in protecting the value, visibility, and general well-being of domestic workers.
Ha beneficiado a muchos países el Convenio 189.
Convention 189 has benefited many countries that is ratified and implemented in laws. For example, Social Security has passed in Mexico, the ratification of Convention 189 in Peru, and in turn the law for workers in private homes, as well as a new law in 2013, thanks to the adoption of Convention 189 in Argentina, Law 26844. Convention 189 is the original foundational legislation that will allow us to demand the rights that correspond to us, to workers.
Les organisations des travailleurs domestiques s'activent, et en Guinée particulièrement, les travailleurs domestiques savent qu'ils ont un syndicat qui les défend, qui les protège. Ils ont droit au SMIC, ils ont droit à un travail décent et à une vie décente.
In Europe, before Convention 189, domestic workers had not been on the agenda at all, and this includes trade unions. This has changed. C189 makes domestic work visible. It helps us to fight for domestic workers' rights.
Domestic workers have always used creative strategy to organize. We take inspiration from previous generations. We have passed domestic workers' Bill of Rights from 10 states and 2 cities.
In Asia, the domestic workers in our country become visible. Our biggest achievement so far is that we had the right to access to labor courts, join the union, and organize the unorganized domestic workers.
What did it prove to us that day when we got that convention? It shows the power of domestic workers in the world that unite and speak in one voice to free themselves.
next 10 years, governments must take concrete action to make C189 a reality everywhere. Every day, somewhere, some domestic workers are joining trade unions and making changes. The domestic workers movement is unstoppable. We will make a difference for ourselves and the generation to come. Please join us.
The domestic workers movement is unstoppable indeed. And if you are not inspired yet, I invite you to listen to the words of our General Secretary, Elizabeth Tang, who will share about the 10 years report with us. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Yes, our movement is unstoppable because of you. And at this occasion, when we celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Convention 189, we, together with rigor, the Women in Informal Economy, Globalizing and Organizing, to which we are an affiliate, have produced a report on what has happened, what we have achieved, and what our future challenges and possibilities are. And this report is now ready, and we will share this, and we will let everybody read it about what we have done in the past 10 years and how we are going to move into the future. And now I like to have this opportunity, it's my privilege, to welcome our guests. They are not guests, to be exact. They are our allies. Because of them, we are where we are today. Because of them, we have grown and we will continue to grow. So we have first 3 speakers and who are going to share their thoughts and who are going to give us guidance, encouragement. So the first speaker is Sally Rover. She is the international coordinator of rigor, which I have just explained, and together we have produced this 10 years report. And after Sally, we will have Sue Loney. She is the General Secretary of the International Union of Food Workers, which is our mother organizations, which provides us a home when we started 10 years ago. And last but not the least, the third speaker is Manuela Dome. She's the director of the conditional work in the ILO. Unfortunately, she cannot come to join us at this event, but she has sent a video and we will listen to them. Sally, please.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, Rula, Myrtle, and everyone at IDWF for the invitation to be a part of this day. I'm honored and humbled to be able to give the solidarity statement on behalf of WIGO on this occasion of the 10th anniversary of C189. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years. WIGO was honored to be a part of the founding of the IDWN more than 10 years ago, beginning with the very first international conference of domestic workers in the Netherlands. And at the time, we had a unique and excellent partnership with our longtime member and ally, the IUF. And we're very proud also to be sitting alongside the IUF today. We treasure the experience of working together with so many of you in those early days of founding and building the IDWN and then the IDWF. And after that first conference in the Netherlands, where we first brought together domestic workers from all over, that was followed by the announcement that the ILO would discuss this possible convention. And WIGO was very proud to support delegations of domestic workers to the 3 international labor conferences that followed, to learn the process, to get to know the characters, and to influence the discussions and ultimately the outcome. 2 years ago, in 2019, at the time of the Convention Against Violence and Harassment in the World of Work, I had the opportunity, alongside many others, to attend the ILC for the very first time. And I remember sitting alongside others who, were there for the first time, like me, at this very large oval-shaped table in a briefing room at our very first preparatory meeting. And we were hearing from Myrtle and Fish and so many others who had been part of those earlier delegations tell us everything that they had learned from the experience. They let everyone know what to expect, how much strength and perseverance it would take, just how difficult it would be to get through the next 2 weeks. And so for me and for others, it was a chance to learn from all of you pioneers, as we said earlier, who had previous experience with just what it takes to get a convention adopted and what it took to get C189 in particular adopted. So I wanted to share this just because I think it's important to recognize we are all part of something special. Our movement is always growing. The world around us is always changing. But by standing alongside one another and listening to each other and learning from each other, by having these shared spaces, just like that big oval table, we are always getting stronger. And really crucially, we are always bringing along more people. This is something very special. From our pioneers, we also learned not only how to engage in the ILCs and shape the outcomes, but we also learned how campaigns for ratification and for implementation of C189 have mobilized and united domestic workers from around the world. And it's important also to recognize there are real lessons here, not only for domestic workers, but also for all of the global networks of workers in informal employment, for StreetNet International, which brings together street vendors and market traders, for HomeNet International, bringing together home-based workers, and for all of the eventually more and more global networks. So we are always learning from each other. We anticipate many more victories, and yes, also many more challenges that we'll face together. So to all of our dear friends and comrades at IDWF, you are an inspiration to all of us, and it means the world to us to have such a strong partnership and bond with you all. So congratulations on all that you've achieved. We are honored to be part of this day of recognition, celebration, and inspiration. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you for your encouragement. And now may I have Sue.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's a great honor for me to be here with you all, and I'm really impressed by the number of participants on the call to bring you greetings on behalf of the IUF, which is the Global Trade Union Federation for workers throughout the food chain. And we're very honored to count the IDWF as a special group within the IUF. It was lovely to hear Myrtle and her inspiring speech. She's always a difficult act to follow. So Myrtle, great to see you and see you in such good form. You remind us so much of that 10-year battle, that battle 10 years ago that Sally was just referring to. Today is, of course, a big day for celebration of recognition of what was won through the adoption of Convention 189. For me, the really important step forward then was the recognition of what you all anyway knew, was that domestic workers were workers and had to have access to workers' rights, and the recognition of the importance of domestic workers contributing in so many ways across society, across economies, to ensure that we, the rest of the world, could do their jobs and that that the world would continue to turn, but based on the shoulders of those domestic workers. That recognition was really essential to taking forward the case. COVID-19, however, I think has really shown still the many challenges that we have to confront. We heard stories of thousands of domestic workers laid off, of domestic workers without the proper protection, of domestic workers with no access to social protection or to furlough schemes. But I just thought for myself, what if we had not won 189? What if there was no IDWF? How much worse the situation of those workers would have been. So today, I really do think we should celebrate our victory, should celebrate the success, but recognize that there are still challenges to go. Last week, and I don't know if you'll have seen the report, there was also another shocking report from the International Labour Organization, where we heard that after 15 years of progress in eliminating child labor, the figures are now back on the way up. And we know that there will be many children in domestic work in those figures. One of the shocking things actually was that the report, the figures were analysed before COVID-19 really started to impact. And we know when this is analysed, we will see those figures are going up more and more. But for me, this was a reminder that none of our victories are ever constant. And we have to always make sure that we're fighting together to push forward, to get more recognition, to get more ratifications. Today, I really look forward to working, to hearing your stories, the victories that we've had so far. And from that, we will draw the inspiration to take the battle forward, to make sure that domestic workers around the world have the full protection that they deserve. So thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Myrtle, for this chance to speak. And I'm looking forward to a great event and to continuing the work together. Thank you. Solidarity forever. IDWF, viva.
Viva IDWF, viva IUF. Now let us hear Manuela Dome of the ILO.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is an honor to address the International Domestic Workers Federation and domestic workers around the world at the occasion of International Domestic Workers Day. This is a special international day because it coincides with the 10th anniversary of ILO Convention 189 on decent work for domestic workers. I remember very well the joy, screams, tears, and the hugs that exploded in the UN Assembly Hall when the International Labour Conference adopted the convention. I remember in particular the dance of domestic workers who during 2 years had contributed to the shaping of their convention, your convention, from the workers' benches. Your insights, perseverance, and determination were key to the adoption of Convention 189. But that was the beginning of a much longer and winding journey towards making this world a better place for all domestic workers. 10 years have passed since then, and a great deal has happened since 2011, including the outbreak of one of the most ravaging pandemics of the last 100 years. Today is the time to take stock of both the achievements and the outstanding challenges, and to reflect on how to accelerate the pace of transformational change. This is what the ILO's report, Making Decent Work a Reality for Domestic Workers, Progress and Prospects, 10 years after the adoption of the Domestic Workers Convention, which will be launched on 15 June, seeks to do. Let me share with you a couple of its main messages. We have seen progress in the recognition of domestic workers' labor rights. Today, a relatively high percentage of countries provide labor and social security protections, although there are great variations across regions. There have particularly been advances in the regulation of working time. And this is very much thanks to the years of efforts by domestic workers' organizations everywhere, the IDWF and the ITUC. What is lacking, though, is implementation. Working conditions remain very poor. Informality, due to gaps both in legal protection and in implementation, is twice as high as among other wage earners. This means low and volatile pay, no paid sick leave, no unemployment insurance, and often no access to health care either. These protection gaps have shown the devastating effects they can have on domestic workers during a pandemic like the current one. Many domestic workers have contracted the virus because of the lack of protective equipment and inability to apply physical distancing rules, and had to stop working and lost their jobs as a result. During the lockdown, many others were sent home without knowing whether they would be able to get their job back and were given no alternative income to rely on. Many migrant domestic workers were laid off and unable to return home because of border closures, and in some instances were abandoned in front of their consulates. All have faced increased risk of violence and harassment. But the response by domestic workers' organizations has been an inspiration to us all. Despite all the restrictions, we have seen how they have delivered food, made protective masks, and checked in on the health of domestic workers. The role that the IDWF has played in supporting its affiliates to meet these most pressing needs has been essential. Domestic workers' organizations have also successfully mobilized and lobbied for the ratification of ILO Convention 190 on violence and harassment in the world of work, as in Argentina. These are very encouraging developments which bode well for the future. One of the main takeaways of our report is that a better future for all domestic workers is contingent on their effective voice and representation, and that of their employers. Collective bargaining and other social dialogue mechanisms are most effective in ensuring that laws are well adapted to the sectors and contribute towards its formalization. For that, we need strong, democratic, and well-equipped domestic workers' organizations. This Congress is proof that we are on the right track. I wish you the best of luck in your deliberation, and thank you very much for all what you do. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. So we would just show you the report that Elizabeth has been talking about, the 10-year report that was produced in collaboration with WIGO. So once it is out, you can know what you are looking for. And Elizabeth, would you like to say a few words before we move to the panel?
Yes, this is the report I have earlier talked about. We have produced it together with WIGO. As the title says, 10 years since winning Convention 189, domestic workers become an unstoppable movement. This is our movement. So this report talks mostly about organizing, how we have organized, not just the IDWF, but including all our affiliates on the ground. Of course, it is not possible to capture all the successes, but we have tried very much to give some key examples. So on reading this report, I hope you will be inspired on how our domestic workers have tried with all the means and all the opportunities they have to build a movement. And of course, we will continue to work hard and move ahead for the future so that all domestic workers everywhere will be free. As Myrtle, our president, has said in the beginning, that today a new domestic workers union is born, which is a migrant domestic workers union working in Malaysia for Indonesian domestic workers. This is the first of its kind, and it shows how domestic workers never stop in organizing and building the movement. And that is why we are so hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We are indeed very hopeful, and we are very privileged to be celebrating this day collectively with allies and with domestic workers. And I'll take this moment to just give you a few housekeeping reminders. If you have any questions, write them in the chat box. We will make sure to either address them after the panel if we have some time for the Q&A, or to report back to you with the report from this webinar. We will make sure that we address those questions, whether live or in writing. And a second thing, you see the globe in the bottom of your screen. It's the icon of a globe and it says interpretation. You need to press on that and find the channel in which you will be able to listen to the language of your choice. We have the image of the interpretation channels where you will be able to find the languages that you're most comfortable with. So for Swahili, click on Chinese. For Bahasa Indonesian, click on Russian. For Thai, click on German. For Khmer, click on Japanese. For Hindi, click on Korean. The rest is pretty straightforward. Vicky, we would like to invite you now so you can moderate our next panel, which will talk about the achievements of some regions in relation to their demands and mobilization around C189. Vicky, could you please take the floor?
Thank you very much, Laura. Viva International Domestic Workers Federation. Yeah, in this session is about while Convention 189 is an international standard, it is not easily applicable across contexts. Workers have been creative to mobilize around the convention, even when ratification has been very difficult. Therefore, in this session, we are going to have 4 speakers. We are having Gilda Blanco from North America. We are having Mary Ann Abuda from MENA. We are having another speaker, Bajoplin Kalmudai from Asia. Sorry for the poor pronunciation of the name. And we are having Ruthie Kasara from Zambia Domestic Workers Union. Now I will start with Gilda. Gilda from North America. The US is known to not ratify conventions and to have autonomous state governance. How does Convention 189 play out in your union strategies? Please, Gilda.
Thank you, Vicky. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I hear you very well.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you all. So thank you for having me in this panel this morning. First of all, I want to say congratulations to all of you who are working really hard for the past 10 years, working in the C189 convention. Is a lot of work to do, but we have to continue fighting. So the question is, until this day, the nanny, house cleaner, and many home workers in the US work largely with no contract, no benefits, no health and safety protection. And they are some of the lowest paid workers in the US. The reality is that there are particular challenge to organize this workforce is 2 million homes means 2 million workers, 2 million workplaces, 2 million different employers. This is a very different context that organizing in a workplace where there are many workers and one employer. Domestic workers in the US have also been excluded from basic workplace protection and at the federal and state level that protect other workers. This exclusion has origins in the legacy of the slavery in the US and the racism and sexism domestic workers have had to fight against throughout history and today. So domestic workers have always used creative, like I say in the video we enjoy at the beginning of the celebration. We are using that creative organizing. We take that inspiration for domestic workers, for previous generation, and from our sister around the world. NDWA is made up of over 75 local affiliates and chapters as well as a growing base and individual member. Also, we have in regular contact with over 250,000 domestic workers in all 50 states. We wage campaign to change the policies on the city, states, and federal level to win new rights and rise the standard for all domestic workers. The NDWA contribution and commitment to C-189 campaign in North America is the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. Domestic workers are building power in the United States, while we know the US is unlikely to adopt Convention 189. It's serves an important tool for us to advocate for our rights and local level. For example, we have 10 statewide domestic worker bill of rights and 2 city level bills in each of our campaign in the US. We have also drawn inspiration from our sister in the global domestic worker movement. For over 10 years, each bill has built in the victory of the last and has won innovative protection, and they provide a standard for our sector where none exists before. In 2018, the National Domestic Workers Bill of Rights was introduced by former Senator, also and current Vice President Harris and Congresswoman Jayapal. This bill is a federal legislation that include domestic workers in common workplace law for the first time, while creating new protection and stronger ways to enforce them. This week also marks the introduction of the New Jersey Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, the 11th state to introduce such a bill. Even as we pass a national Bill of Rights, states and city will continue to be where we can test and expand policies to the unique challenge faced by our workforce. All of this work is spanning internationally and domestically is another example of how domestic workers are leading the way toward a caring economy that works first for everyone, is work for everyone. The Federal Bill of Rights incorporate the best part of our state and local Bill of Rights and would extend those protections to domestic workers all around the country. We have been building support for the bill for the past 2 years, and it will be introduced in Congress soon. So we're going to be fight for that as well. So we will love to have you to stay tuned to win. We will need everyone, not just only 50 states in North America, also everyone, all our country, to be part of that effort to start win that permanent legislation and protection for all domestic workers. So we can say right now to all of you, congratulations, Viva Domestic Workers, Viva 10-year celebration C-189. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gilda, Blanco. Nothing can be prevented when we unite together. The second presenter is Mary Ann Abuda. She is from Sandigan, Kuwait Domestic Workers Association. She is from MENA region. Convention 189 is a tool against the kafala system. How has it been done? How has it been used? Can you explain to the House? Welcome, Sandigan. Anna, it's over to you. Anna, is there anything we can help from our technical experts? Please bear with us. I see Anna is being assisted. Yes, now she's on. Anna, welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. First of all, congratulations. Sorry for some technical problems. So C189 as a tool against kafala system. Without the C189 standard, it's difficult to conceptualize, strategize, and mobilize. We use it as a tool against kafala system. A good carpenter cannot build a house without the familiarization and know how to use specific equipment to do the right job. A good carpenter, like us, will learn and mobilize while advocating for migrant domestic workers. The first step that we do is collecting information and find like-minded advocates that work around the C189. We attended meetings, seminars, and religiously participating in programs that directly and indirectly connected with domestic workers' concern. We make friends, build trust, forge strong relationship, and we are lucky to find reliable ally that becomes our support network. Without them, we cannot be in the right and proper path that we are now walking through to realize our main goal. Personal qualities like resiliency, perseverance, resourcefulness, trustworthy, and dependable person is the main ingredient that you need. These qualities is not enough without identifying essential elements so that you can fuse it up to your own personal qualities. In our case, we identify the following. Number one is organizing. We conduct leadership training, capacity building, know your rights forums, organizing not only Filipino nationality but also other nationalities in the same sector. They may have same issues, but the level of issue is different. Besides, it's important to organize the sector regardless of nationality because in general, they are all vulnerable as domestic workers. Number two, access to justice. We study the labor law of both country of origin and country of destination. What are the protection mechanisms available? In Kuwait, we have the domestic workers law. What we can recommend? Number three is reintegration. We conduct livelihood program, enhancement and retooling of skills, social security seminars, or awareness through government agencies. Research. We conduct feminist participatory action research, report writing, building project design, narrative report that comes along with our findings, evaluations, and recommendations. Number five is mental health and medical concern. We talk to workers. We listen to them through our counseling programs. It gives child to many innovative ideas that incentivize employers and migrant domestic workers, like the caregiving class, the language training, other skills that benefit both employers and workers. But of course, our purpose is for the worker to have their day off and learn something new, be aware of their rights, teach them to negotiate and to assert their rights. We added silent campaigns on the events that we are doing, like wearing t-shirts that depicted the minimum rights that C189 depicted. Maximizing the support that we gathered from our partners and allies. Being visible is very important. Yes, we have the kafala system, but we are able to form organization like the Sandigan Kuwait Domestic Workers Association. We have the Sri Lankan Domestic Workers Association, and recently the Ethiopian Domestic Workers Association. And we will not stop there. We are working on the most vulnerable nationality to be organized, like the African domestic workers. Kafala system hinders the ratification of Convention 189. No country in the Middle East were able to ratify it, but it is also a tool to abolish kafala. We just need to work together, organize, and mobilize. It is not impossible, only challenging. Viva IDWF, Viva Domestic Workers, Viva Solidarity, IDWF forever. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna from Sandigan Kuwait Domestic Workers. You have mentioned very, very important issue that we need. You are using the holistic approach, which includes organizing, and you have stressed on that. Capacity building, which includes training and education, access to social justice. You need to know laws from each country. Also, you have mentioned the issue of research, which you are doing, and the counseling have been one of the issue. But the most important you have mentioned is building alliance with different groups in Kuwait. Thank you very much. Now we are going to the third presenter or speaker from Asia. Her name is Bajoplin Kamudai. She's the chairperson of the National Domestic Workers Federation in India. The major gain of Convention 189 for the region was the accession of domestic work as work, and therefore opening the door for more unionizing. Can you tell the House what have you been doing on this? Bajolin, please.
Yes, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you. National Domestic Workers Day and the 10th anniversary of C189. In India, like what we have been working for 10 years, but till now, no comprehensive legislation so far in India. So either we have 18 states registered in National Domestic Workers Federation, and every sessions of the parliament, we used to organize lobbying advocacy, and we used to go and submit the memorandum to the government. But so far, we have no legislatives in India. Already the bill have been drafted in the government, but the policy for domestic workers, but not yet implemented till update. We have been organizing poster campaign, signature campaign, press meet, national rally, memorandum submission, but through the domestic workers movement, the National Domestic Workers Federation, and we have been organized the National Platform for Domestic Workers since 2018, where 4,000 members were take part in the rally. But since till up to date, the government of India has failed to implement Convention 189. So we have to fight, and we have to fight for our rights. So we need the solidarity of all the unions present in all over Asia, so that we will be able to fight and to demand our rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bajoplin, for the presentation of what is happening in India. Major issue is you are continuing to lobbying and advocate, though the government has not yet ratified Convention 189. And the major emphasis is the fight continues in India to make sure that Convention 189 is ratified and the policies are being enforced. Thank you very much. Now we are coming to the last speaker from Africa. Her name is Ruth Kasala. She is a General Secretary of the Domestic Workers Union of Zambia. Africa is mobilizing around Convention 189 for social protection of domestic workers. What has it been done and what are the challenges? Over to Ruth Kasala.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ruth Sakala from Zambia, and I'm the General Secretary. And again, I'm representing African region. Yes, colleagues, I'm representing Africa on mobilizing around C189 for social protection. First of all, I'm very happy and I'm very humbled indeed to be part of this panel of celebrating the Convention 189, which was adopted in June 2011. And indeed, I'm very, very happy as a domestic worker because this is especially speaking for us as domestic workers. And for example, in Zambia, let me start with Zambia. Like for example, here in Zambia, at least it has been cut in a lot of areas. Like as for now, as domestic workers, we have got the right to take part in formation of a trade union. We have got the right to be a member of a trade union because of this Convention 189. We have a right to take part in activities of a trade union and to hold office subject to the constitution of the trade unions. We have got a right to be prevented, dismissed, penalized, and we have got a right to be a member of a trade union. But again, as I'm speaking on the entire Africa, as labor movement leaders, we have got a lot of work to do so that we can teach our members so that they can know their rights, that they've got a right to social protection. And this social protection is very important to us domestics because even as domestic workers, we want our children to have access to education. We want our children to have access to good hospitals. We want even us, domestic workers, to be catered in these principles and fundamental rights at work. And this social protection have been started to be covered in countries like
She's cut off. Hello? Hello? Ruthie? Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Ruthie.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. You were cut off.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Continue,
and on
please.
common demands for domestic workers in Africa. We need social protections, security during this pandemic of COVID-19. Policies should be included in all domestic workers sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruth. There was a communication breakdown because of the communication, I think poor internet connection. You have raised issues on social protection, and there are some development, but still there is a need for social protection, especially during this COVID-19. At this end, I would like to thank all the panelists for your very important presentation and issues which you have raised in your presentation. Thank you very much. Over to Rola.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Vicky, for your moderation. A quick reminder that you could paste your questions in the chat box and we will get to them. Our next panel is moderated by Adriana, our Latin America coordinator. So Adriana, the floor is yours and to your speakers.
Thank you very much, Rula. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Sisters, it's so great to have you and to be united today. This panel is about the challenges of implementation of C189. So we're going to have in our panel representatives from the countries where there is a majority of ratifications of C189. Nevertheless, the implementation remains a big challenge. Just a reminder that C189 is one of the ILO conventions that has been ratified the most in the country, and this is because of the great determination of all of you. We have 14 ratifications in Latin America. We have 9 ratifications in Europe. We have 1 in Asia, 3 in the Caribbean, and 5 in Africa. However, as our president was reminding us, the struggle never ends, because making a reality ratification of C189, it is one of the greatest challenges that this movement is facing. But you are demonstrated that what is impossible, it is possible. So we're going to hear about the improvements, but also the challenges that are still ahead from our panelists. So we're going to welcome our first panelist, who is Elaine Duncan from the Jamaica Household Workers Union. Please, Elaine, the floor is yours. Do we have Elaine? Elaine, if you are here, we cannot hear you. Make sure your microphone is on. And if Elaine is not ready, perhaps we can move to our second speaker until Elaine gets ready. So we're going to move to our second speaker, Elaine.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you to IDWF and congratulations on the 10th anniversary of Convention 189. The Caribbean has a long history of mobilizing domestic workers. For decades, legal tradition and labor relation have discriminated against domestic workers. Like the case of many post-colonial societies that compensate labor that requires formal education while making formal education burdensome and not affordable. Informal economy comprising many impoverished populations that come from histories of bonded labor, enslavement, and debt displacement on a global economic level. The International Labour Organization Caribbean Office, in collaboration with the Bureau of Women's Affairs and the Jamaica Household Workers Association, held a strategic workshop in 1990 to improve the situation of domestic workers. We know that at least 15% of Jamaican women are employed in the domestic work sector, and that these numbers are even more for women who are occasionally employed. Throughout the Caribbean, in countries where minimum national wages exist, domestic workers are found at the bottom of the scale. Under the pandemic, we have witnessed more attempts of entry to the domestic work sector because work became less possible. If it was not for external help, relief under the pandemic would not have been possible. Our president, Shirley Price, has secured donations for domestic workers to help with relief packages and payday. Although some measures were put in place by the government to qualify for funds, the access was difficult. The challenges were similar in other islands. In Trinidad and Tobago, the National Union of Domestic Employees, NUD, was not able to access resources as the Ministry of Labor and the Industrial Court were closed. Systems where people needed to register online were not functional, nor were they user-friendly. Today, we will celebrate the 10th anniversary of Convention 189, which Convention 189. Today we celebrate the 10th anniversary of Convention 189, our convention, which represents a key step in recognizing domestic workers as workers who are entitled to labor rights and protection equal to all other workers. Domestic workers have been among the least protected worldwide, as labor laws in many countries either do not recognize them or expressly exclude them from critical protection. Furthermore, the pandemic has highlighted and drawn attention to the importance of their work, in particular regarding care, and the need to ensure that we have access to the most basic rights. The ratification of Convention 189 is thus especially important because it sets a standard to this form of employment, a standard that can survive crises like the one we are experiencing today. And while the ratification rate is admirable in an area of the size of the Caribbean, where we have 4 countries that ratify Convention 189, implementation left us across the Caribbean wanting. For example, all workers in Jamaica are covered under the law as all other workers. The problem we are having is enforcement and education, as the laws are there, but some employers do not know or pretend not to know. Thanks to our union that always educate and empower us to know our rights. The Occupation Health and Safety Law must be changed, especially considering that COVID-19 is a work hazard. Our advocacy also pushes for the implementation of Caribbean Community CARICOM, Single Market and Economy, CSME. This means that domestic workers would be able to travel freely across all Caribbean islands. However, it is not so for us as domestic workers. So we have to continue fighting for what is rightfully ours, which is free movement across the Caribbean, as signed in the Treaty of Chaguaramas. Today, the Jamaica Household Workers Union called for sweeping changes across the Caribbean. We have fought for 30 long years, advocating through many different actions for our rights to be a reality. We joined forces with other countries globally. We joined with other Caribbean islands and fought together. We fought single-handedly to see better working conditions for domestic workers. We want many more ratification and implementation of Convention 189 across the Caribbean. Protecting domestic workers' rights is a must, and more concrete actions are required for government to provide social protection for us. We demand social protection for all the domestic workers around the globe.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Sorry.
It's time to act. Time come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Thank you for reminding us the hard struggle and the victories that the Caribbean has got after 10 years of the adoption of C189. A big round of applause for the Caribbean sisters. For the next panelist, it's really awful to have to cut you off, but you know, time is never in our side. So when I do this to the next panelist, that means that you have to start wrapping up your ideas. It's really awful to do my job, but we have to be always mindful of the time. Our next panelist is Wendy Galarza. She is an executive from Field Camps Italy. She's also our executive member in the IDWF. And we remind that Europe has gotten 9 ratifications, but they have their own challenges ahead. So we welcome Wendy.
Buenas tardes a todas, buenos días y buenas noches. Soy Wendy Paola Galarza.
Good morning, good afternoon. Good evening. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be able to talk to you in this celebration of Convention 189, which is so important for domestic workers. This has meant that we shed light on the world of work. We didn't have a light before. This light has given us rights, has given us the willingness to continue requesting governments the amendment of legal provisions and laws to provide more protection to domestic workers and to give more visibility to domestic workers, and also to have their rights protected. In Europe, we have only 33.4% of ratifications of C189, which allows includes only 8 countries in the European community, plus another country that doesn't belong to the European community, which is Switzerland. So it's very few. We have 27 countries and only 8 have ratified. Countries where there has a very high presence of domestic workers who don't declare their presence, and this reaches 66% sometimes. It's a world that, with all due respect for men, I always refer to our world as a feminine world because there's a large number of women in this sector. And specifically speaking about Europe, I can tell you about Europe, and I can tell you what's going on. We need still, we only have 70% of domestic workers that are, or actually 70% of domestic workers are not declared. And the benefits of C189 for all workers are not going to apply or regulate only political issues, but also issues that mean life, work, the respect of a work shift, a day off, a decent area where to sleep after the workday for the sleeping domestic workers. So this framework allows us, from a human perspective, allows us to give dignity to a group of women and actually migrant or non-migrant workers that didn't have protection until 10 years ago. I would like to tell you about the specific case of Italy. Italy, amidst everything I've described, we could say it's a happy island. But happy islands don't exist. Happy islands are a fairy tale. We have a legal system, of course. We have a legal framework that helps us to improve conditions, and that was implemented with the approval of C-189. But this legal framework has to be implemented and regulated. And the legal framework we have gives us an agreement, a signed agreement with the government, whereby employers, whereby we can have a bilateral entity to have training seminars for workers. And this bilateral entity also allows us to we have a CasaConf entity, this is the name, to help us implement the part that is not complied with by of the contract. And so everything sounds good up to here, but there's a very important fundamental part, and that is the implementation of C-189 in this country. So the government needs to have more dialogue and to implement laws with this legal framework, international legal framework, which as of today, 2021, is not yet done. We as Philcams, we are a very large organization, together with other union organizations, have presented to the government a document where we demand and we state that this is the time to improve, to integrate the legal framework, the international legal framework to this law. Only then will we be able to say that this is a happy island, because otherwise it's just wishful thinking. We get together to say that we're beautiful, etc. But the teachings from the women who waged this fight before us, like Marcelina Bautista, Ernestina Ochoa, Myrtle, Juana Flores, they have taught us that we do not want a convention that is full of lies. We want a convention that is fair for all of us, a convention that allows us, or that gives us equality of rights for all, because we don't want a convention full of lies. We want an effective convention that gives us the same rights as all workers and everywhere in the world, because the women that I mentioned before were women that fought, women that before 2011 had organized and had fought, and they made it possible for us to be here celebrating the 10th anniversary of C-189. And we want a real convention in all countries and also in Italy. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Wendy. You are right on time. And yes, that is true. We want a convention that is real. We want a convention that changes life. We want a convention that dignifies and gives decent work to domestic workers. A big round of virtual applauses for Wendy, and good job, sisters in Europe. Now we are calling to our next panelist. She is from Latin America. It's our sister Maria Cotal from FESINTRACAP. It is a federation of domestic workers in Chile, and they have many years of organizing, grassroots organizing in Latin America. We remind that Latin America has 14 ratifications of C-189. Nevertheless, the challenges are the same like in other regions. Maria, bienvenida, welcome.
Welcome, Maria. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. 10 years after the adoption of C-189, we celebrate and greet you. And this is a work that gives us tools to ensure decent work in decent conditions. So I would like to salute you all the countries that have ratified this agreement and that are fighting for the implementation, such as us. In Chile, the first movement of domestic workers is going to turn 100 years. And we, as Sintrapac, are 70 years or over 70 years old. So before the adoption or the ratification of the convention in Chile, we had already had Social Security. We had acquired that, except for unemployment insurance and the family allowance fund. We had minimum wages, protection of salaries. We had maternity leave and maternity protection, hiring and oversight. This is our flaw, oversight. This is what's missing. Special rules. We had the rules regarding the Labor Day, rest, damages, or payment for severance, and there's still a lot needed in Chile to be able to comply with certain standards given by C-189 regarding migration.
In 1991,
in 1991, the severance pay was created.
La ley 19.591
Law 19.010 creates the right to maternity protection for domestic workers. Law 2255 in 2008 establishes the minimum wage for domestic workers and establishes full-time and part-time, and it was a gradual implementation until 2011. Law 2279 in 2008 establishes minimum monthly income.
Del feriado legale y aplicable
Law 2336 extended the applicable legal holiday to all domestic workers. Before that, domestic workers didn't have a right to enjoy time off during public holidays. Law 2786, which is our jewel, is our crown jewel. After many, many years of work and efforts, we achieved it. Adjusts the rules of domestic workers to C-189. It adjusts the written contract provisions and restricts the schedule to 45 hours. Before, we were forced to work in 74 hours. So overtime is also limited for live-out domestic workers.
La jornada es de lunes a viernes.
A Sunday rest for live-in arrangements. Before, they only had half a day off every 15 days. So this was a very significant achievement of the workers who were fighting at the time. And the demand to wear a uniform in public areas was prohibited because that was prone to discrimination against our comrades.
Decreto número 34 que promulga.
Decree Law number 35 implements Convention C-189 about domestic work. This was in 2016 in Chile. So under the protection of the law, a distinction between workers and laborers is eliminated. And it allows that in the event of a labor accident, for them to have access to specialized health care. And this became effective in 2019. Law 21269 of 2020 includes domestic workers in the unemployment insurance with benefits immediately during the pandemic.
20 años de lucha para poder acceder
20 years of fight to be able to have access to unemployment insurance, but we achieved it. This is the obligation to comply with current C-189. the legal reform inspired in C-189 have had a positive impact on the quality of work in the sector, but it doesn't ensure persistent change in time without the help of additional public policy. Why is this? Because there is no oversight. Oversight monitoring, like in many other countries in Latin America, prevents oversight. The lack of oversight prevents laws from being applicable in practice. Ever since we've had C-189, the organizations of domestic workers have positioned themselves as a relevant stakeholder in the generation of public policies for the sector, despite the weakness of the social dialogue in Chile. We, as domestic workers, organized domestic workers, have used all means possible available to us, the press, TV stations, lawmakers, to be able to move forward our objectives. Organizations of domestic workers have been able to show that political advocacy and systematic oversight generates positive and impacts in complying with C-189 as established in the 7th regular report of Chile before the CEDAW committee. During 2015, where Law 27886 was approved. Okay, I'm going to leave it here. We have gained many things and we fought a lot during the last years, but we're going to, if you would allow me, we are going to take some time to make a friendly reminder about our great leader, Aida Moreno. She left this world, but she also left us an example of resistance, perseverance, conviction, and fight. Our comrade fought for our sector for 60 years, and this was 60 years of fighting. In the last stages of her life, she just didn't have the strength to accompany us, but from her confinement, she would always remember us, and we will always remember her. So please, I would like to ask you for a minute of silence to remember our comrade Aida Moreno Valenzuela.
Muchas gracias, compañera. Viva la FIT,
viva comrades, viva
la particular del mundo.
DWF and the domestic workers throughout the world.
Thank you very much, Maria. Aida Moreno, presente. Aida Moreno, presente, presente, presente.
Thank you. Ana Maria is here. Ana Maria is here. Ana Maria is here.
Thank you very much, Maria. It's very touching. It's very emotional for all of us. And thank you for your presentation. Indeed, with 100 years of grassroots organizing and with 73 years of a national federation in Chile, we can surely see all the big improvements that you have done. And of course, we cannot forget that Aida Moreno was a crucial warrior sister in all these improvements. Now, I believe that we still have a little bit of time for some questions here. And I have the first question, it's coming from Rodolphe, and it's asking, it's someone for our African sisters. So Ruth, these questions I believe goes for you. Then the number of ratifications in Africa is insignificant compared to the continent size. What is it that we have few ratifications when this sector provides most of the employment to women? So if our sister from Africa is there, we can pass this question. Okay. It seems that our sister Ruth is not here. I don't know if perhaps Vicky wants to give an answer to this question.
Yeah. Yeah, we have 54 countries in Africa. And it is quite very shocking, not very shocking, surprising that only 5 countries have ratified Convention 189. Do you hear me? I've ratified Convention 189. The government of Africa were united in supporting this Convention 189. Now, when it comes to individual countries is where the problems comes. What I can say in general is just uncommitted leaders or political will is very, very low. Because sometimes, if I can cite some of the countries, there are a lot of activities which are being done. Even the trade union, the tripartite decision-making body, would agree that this convention should be ratified. But when it comes to implementation or ratifying the convention, is again a process. It's bureaucracy. But again, it changes of governments. Changes of governments. Sometimes the trade union, the employers will reach in a point that they are nearly to ratify conventions or Convention 189. But now the government changes. Now it is to start from the way back, because when a new government comes in, one have to start from afresh. We shouldn't assume that everybody knows what is Convention 189. Even the government officers or experts. Therefore, the domestic workers have to start from the way back. And one thing which I see, this convention is only known by the domestic workers. Therefore, all the campaigns, the sensitization, even to the policymakers, to the executives, is done by the domestic workers themselves. Therefore, changes of government now and then hinders the ratification of Convention 189. Therefore, what I can say generally is bureaucracy, political will of the government is very low, but also changes of governments. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vicky. So with this, we give a virtual big round of applause to our panelists from panel 1 and panel 2. And now we are very happy to go to the next part of our program. And for this, I hand it over to my colleague, Rula.
I will just take this moment to tell you that we are about to call it a day, but before we go, we wanted to finish this session on launching our calendar. So here we go with the teaser. Some of you recognize these images. Some of you are our affiliates. They have contributed to these images. So now I will just take a few more minutes to explain what the domestic workers movement calendar is. You have seen the teaser, and we will explain how this came to be today. We wanted to do something special for the 10th anniversary of C189, and we decided what better way to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of C189 than involving all of our affiliates in the formation of something that would archive our movements, something that we can later use as a tool to remember all of these great names, all of these contributions that domestic workers have made to the history, and to also purpose this calendar towards our own sustainability. As COVID-19 has dispossessed so many workers over the past year and a half, and as we are pushing our affiliates to gain autonomy and financial security, we as well are experimenting with various venues towards our own sustainability. So this calendar will be used for fundraising. Please stay tuned for information about how to acquire this calendar that we will make available on our social media. So keep an eye out for that. And I will tell you about the process of creating this calendar and what to expect in terms of content. So we have announced in the beginning of the year a competition to our affiliates whereby domestic workers around the world have sent us pictures that they have taken, drawings that they have made, drawings that their children have made. And we had a jury that chose winning submissions for our graphic designer and illustrator to use these winning submissions that you see here in order to illustrate the calendar. We had winners from all over the world, from every region, and our designer used these contributions in order to create the visual art that you have seen. But our affiliates' job was not solely creative. Their input was not only in the art that they have shared with us. We have received over 80 submissions, and we had 14 winners that have received an award, but they have also contributed with significant dates. Our regional coordinators reached out to their teams, to the affiliates, and have gathered the dates that our affiliates would like to celebrate and to remember in relation to C189. What were the legal victories that they have organized around, and what were significant court rulings, what were significant protests, what were significant meetings. All of this you will find within the calendar. You will find the dates of the ratification of C189, and we hope to see more of them, and we hope that this calendar would be filled out in the future. You will see international days that we celebrate. You will see bits and pieces, glimpses into the lives of domestic worker celebrities, and the foundation dates, not only of our affiliates, when did they come to be, when did they start organizing, but also of sister organizations and our allies, the movements that we hold dear to heart. All of these dates are there, and as you can see, each month has the significant dates marked. We hope that as you use this calendar, you continue to fill the blank spaces with the achievements that you make, you and your union and your allies, so we can continue to archive our history, because the histories of many social justice movements are known. These histories are something that is in the mainstream, that is in the public memory, and domestic workers movements should have that memory become public as well. Domestic work is in nature invisible because of the privacy of the household, but domestic workers movements move mountains and they need to be remembered as such. So in terms of content, in this calendar, you will find artwork based on the submissions of our affiliates and their children, the important dates that we would like you to archive about our movement, and monthly themes for each month is intertwined with something significant that we celebrate, because domestic workers' plights are intersecting with so many other justice plights, such as women causes, racial justice causes, indigenous causes, environmentalist causes. Watch out for those themes, look for them. And finally, there is a manifesto, because as the year 2022 ends, the calendar does not end. You can still keep it on your wall, and you can look at the last page where you will find the manifesto that we collectively wrote on the occasion of the 10th anniversary, to speak loud and clear about how do we envision this movement, what is this movement related to, how is our justice encompassing so many of those dates that you have read about. And I will invite a few of our executive board members to read the manifesto with us. So in this order, if we can pin them to the screen: Andrea, and Yanu, and Doug Moore, and Norma, if you could hear me. So if anyone could hear me, yes, I can hear you too. And we will end with Myrtle. So first, Andrea.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you, Andrea Morales, on behalf of Latin America. Our domestic work makes other work possible. It allows for life and the economy. However, it's underestimated. As domestic workers, we experience a series of injustices that encompass factors such as gender, race, color, ethnic origin, beliefs, caste systems, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, skills, family situation, age, migration, and documentation status. Historically, our work has been developed by women and for free. Therefore, it is not appreciated or well compensated. It is key to remember that there is no justice for women without us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yano.
Yano?
Yano. Yano, could you unmute yourself? Okay, it might be that Yano is experiencing technical difficulties, which is why I would invite our Vice President, Carmen Brites, to read the next point. Carmen.
Sí, acá. ¿Me podrías poner por ahí está?
There.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, compañeros.
Good morning, good afternoon, dear comrades, good evening, and everyone attending. Their home is not our home, it's our workplace. It's a private household, and our work there is invisible, and our safety is compromised. We need to be free of violence at work and at home. Labor movements achieved many victories for domestic workers: working days of 8 hours, rest periods, and labor protection. Unionization made these rights possible for many of us.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Doug Moore, if you could take the floor.
Good morning and good afternoon and good evening to everybody. A great turnout for this meeting. We domestic workers organize for our rights and achieve the ILO Convention 189, stipulating that domestic work is work and that we have the same access to labor rights as any other workers. Without protections, we experience child labor, forced labor, employer-tied visas, and trafficking. Our labor must be dignified and free of coercion. Slaves no more. We are workers. Our labor struggle and racial justice are indivisible.
Thank you, Doug. Norma, if you're here, please unmute yourself. Norma Nelson. If not, I would ask our General Secretary, Elizabeth Tang, to take the floor for this part.
We migrate, benefiting of origin and destination with our remittances and labor. Through the global care chain, countries benefit from us by displacing care burdens onto us. We are care workers, and we and our families need to be cared for too. We must have ownership over our bodies and futures. Silence and fear should not be conditions of work.
Thank you. And finally, our President, Myrtle.
As domestic work, as the IDWF, we are doing our best to organize globally. We are doing it across sectors and across borders. Join us as we ask governments to ratify and implement Convention 189. Sorry, I didn't put my video. Doesn't want to start now. Sorry about that. And we're asking all governments to ratify and implement Convention 189. Today was quite a great day for domestic workers. We want to thank all of you that has joined us. We want to thank all of you that has given up your Sunday to join this very important movement. And as Rola said, we're going to ask you now, thank you. A great clap to you, Rola. You have handled everything so beautiful. Thank to my Vice President, to my General Secretary, to all of you, to Satsawu, to everybody in the world. We salute you in the world. And now I'm going to ask you to open up your microphones and you're going to start singing. Vicky will start that song for us. And we're going to say, we got a, what if we got? A convention. All of us sing. Where's Vicky now?
We have a convention. Domestic
workers have a
convention. Domestic workers have a convention.
Beautiful.
Love you.
Convention, domestic workers, convention.
Let's have a sign for the field, like makikita sa ako video. I'm gonna sign on, but ikaw din ako nag-link sa sign on. I need to sign already. I was just gentleman. Yeah, but I need to know how I'm going to accept because I don't know how to do that in coffee. You do not know so what it is. See that? I'm all up the place. Gloria, just tell everybody to stay in their seats.
Viva!
Viva!
Para todas as domésticas do mundo.
Viva, viva, Malta!
Tá no áudio, certo?
Thank you so much. Take a few moments to congratulate one another. This is a wrap. Thank you for joining us for the celebration today, and see you soon.
Thank you, Rola. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Muchas gracias.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sí se puede, compañera. Sí se puede. Sí se puede.
Tchau, tchau a todas. Um abraço. Bom domingo a todos.
Obrigada. Hasta luego.
Obrigada.
Merci
Obrigada.
Merci
Thank
beaucoup.
Thank you and see you soon.
Asante sana.
Hablamos el calendario. Casamos.
Abrazos,
Obrigado desde São
compañeras.
Paulo, Brasil.
¡Wow! Besos a
Gracias,
todas las
gracias.
compañeras de Latinoamérica y del mundo entero. Besos, abrazos, disfruten su día de tanta lucha.
Abraços, Carmen, e a
Eso.
todos.
La lucha
Abrazos,
continúa. La lucha
abrazos.